So I'm gonna call the meeting to order, 6:01. We have to do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Does anyone have any changes or requests to change the agenda?
Nope.
I'm good.
The only thing I might mention on the agenda is some members of the Mize family might show up. And if they are here at 7, then I might suggest at that time, can we just move? I don't know that they're coming or not, which is why I just left it where it was as a park and rec matter. But if they do, I might suggest bumping it up, getting through that item, and then that way they can move on.
I agree.
Well, then I would
Sounds
like
perfect.
to adopt the agenda with that move because we can't do it later.
Well, you can, but with that potential move.
Yeah, we could say,
Correct.
if they arrive.
Like I don't want.
I'll find out.
It was Eileen who I was talking to.
Okay.
Yeah, so and she wasn't sure at the time, so this was just yesterday.
But then it gives us the
Texting her.
opportunity to
Yep.
Chris
change
is
it.
taking
Yep,
care of
you
it,
got
he's
it.
making
You
sure.
got it, perfect.
I'll sign
Okay,
it. or-
any public comment on closed session items? None. Cross that off. We're going to enter into closed session.
Regarding. So Wills,
But you want an additional
Hi.
10 people at your house.
People are in and out.
No, these aren't the 100 people. No, they're nice people.
You mean like the I'm ready.
Ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, so we're coming out of closed session, with no reportable, regarding the labor negotiations, no reportable action, and the board gave direction to the negotiator. Yes. So that one's done. Consent calendar. Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions?
I just saw there was some more FEMA. Is that for the previous bills that we had that are finally finishing up?
Yes.
Perfect.
I have a
Bill, please ask all the
question.
questions.
I'm curious on the advertising with the Marin IJ. Are we falling behind on summer program?
give me a number.
Oh, 8297. With some Marin IJ.
We're in IJ for,
They keep advertising.
I got for 2185.
Yeah.
Luke can probably speak to this better than I can. I know that we advertise with them every year, but a lot of our specialty camps and everything else. That we
I
offer.
was just curious because it's a good lead number, and I was just wondering if we don't have everything filled yet.
No, we always make a push to advertise our camp program, stay relevant. Our program success is always dependent on finding new users, new families, new participants. So we don't take anything for granted.
I was just curious.
So yeah, so we don't always do the same number of publications and different avenues, but that was one we did this year.
Does that get us noticed then in that, how they do the special summer camp kind of
Yeah,
pull
so
out?
that's
probably
that was that issue. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the pool's finally, we got the pump done.
Yes, I've got a little bit about that in my report, but yeah, it's
I
gonna
just
go.
saw the numbers there, they were pretty good chunks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the 5-3, that was before, for the advertising, that was before we even opened camp registration. Yeah, so for the Marin IJ, right, because we opened it, what is it?
March.
Oh, you're right.
Three
It's a
five.
month later.
But
Sorry.
I will say say, and we explained this at the last meeting as far as that pool repair goes, it's still kept within what we had kind of budgeted for capital expense. Primarily because some of the items that we budgeted on capital expense were also kind of contingency items that we're not actually expending on. So at the end of the year, it's not like we're going to be that far out of whack from a total budget perspective.
Right.
And many of those items carried over to this coming year anyway.
And Westwood and Geomorph, that closes out
Yep.
the creek
Yep.
total?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all
we have
done.
spent, I do not anticipate any more money needing to be
Okay.
spent on creek repairs. Unless somehow the county comes back at me and says, oh, we need more money to close your permit, but they've already done all their inspections, they just said they need to go in and release the holds, and that should close. I haven't actually received the notification of the closed permit from them, but she also said it would take me a little bit to get in and close, because we're understaffed and total
Cool.
work, and, you know, typical lines that come from the county.
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Public comment on items not on the agenda.
It's gonna happen again.
Alright. Okay, it's no public comments.
You were gonna move, yeah.
We are moving item J2 to right now, so that you don't have to sit for our whole meeting. And you get to enjoy your evening.
Although more enjoyable, come on.
Yes, we are. So,
Alright.
I think you were at,
I can lead this off. So, obliged.
perfect.
So I think Les Mize needs no introduction as to who he is, what he's contributed to this community, not only to the community at large, but this district, several other entities, from the Little Leagues to the Lions Club to just the list goes on and on, to operating a bona fide tourist attraction over the holidays for years on end. And shortly after his passing, Eileen Mize, who is here today, was his daughter, approached us looking for information about potentially putting in a memorial of some sort. We kind of, got down to putting a bench in and went through the process. A couple things I do need to say on this request before we allow Eileen to speak if she's so. To make a long story short, I kind of screwed up on this one because we've been talking about this a while ago. The typical procedure on this is it would go to the P&R Commission and then it would come to the board. I will just be very transparent when I say I absolutely failed in putting it on the P&R agenda, which is why you have so many different types of options to go here. Ultimately, the authority on approval of something like this does come down to the board, irregardless of what the P&R recommendation might be. That said, when you look at these options, you can just go ahead and provide final approval. You can provide the approval from the board right now, contingent that the P&R also approves, and if they don't approve, bring it back to the board to discuss why not. Or you can just ask that there's no motion or vote or anything on this until it goes through the P&R and then back to the board. Keeping in mind, P&R is not going to meet for another month and a half.
And I don't mean any disrespect by this question, does it have to go back to PNR?
No.
Okay.
No,
Are
that's
we,
what-
are we setting a bad precedent by not? Like, I don't mind,
Not
I just
necessarily.
don't wanna have something come back to us.
Not
and
necessarily. I don't think that anybody in the P&R Commission, especially given the nature of this particular request and this person who is being memorialized, would have any level of qualms
Okay,
with
I
this.
just wanted to make sure.
Chris sits on P&R as well, and he can likely speak to that. P&R has never not recommended a memorial request.
Okay,
Ever.
perfect.
This would not be the one.
Yeah,
No,
I agree. So they're all, I'm trying to give you options.
Yeah.
And then, and I put in the report here, talking amongst staff, and talking amongst Eileen, as, kind of on behalf of her entire family, we did identify a bench, and given Les's history here, and Les raising children and subsequent grandchildren, And the fact that we actually have spots in mind where we've been wanting to put a bench, thought it would be very, very appropriate to put a bench in his honor inside the new playground area. And also talking to Eileen, saying, if you knew Les at all, you know that he is all things Disney, and even trying to incorporate some level of, whether it's copyrighted artwork that we can fudge a little bit, or some sort of phrase or acknowledge to that, just to add to the whimsical that is a playground anyway, I think is incredibly appropriate. You know, this is the person who had the Mickey Mouse house for 30 years, and I think if he owned 30 shirts, 29 of them had a Disney emblem on them, and the other one was a Lions Club shirt. So, and with all that said, my point being, as a staff, we've identified 2 potential locations within the playground where there actually is a need and a desire for us to put benches in there. I think this is a nice way to fill a bench in that area. I don't believe, and Luke and I can talk a little bit more, I don't think we're thinking about one of those great big giant concrete benches that we have a couple of them in there to be, you know, kind of more of a standard bench like what we have been doing with other memorials, much like what we did for Jim Juarez or something along those lines.
So this would be an additional bench.
An additional bench that's going to go in there. We have 2 spots where we really like a bench. One's over by the swings, and one is all the way over on the other end, kind of right near where the picnic area is.
There's
So,
2 in there right now?
we have none in there right now. Oh, bench total? How many benches do we have in there?
There's a couple tables and there's a few benches.
There's the 2 concrete ones that are on the far side near the fence that's near the creek, and then just a bunch of
Right, but additional seating
Yeah,
would be
there's-
great.
was something that was part, that came
Part
out
of the
of the
discussion,
surveys
yeah.
that we did
Yeah.
and everything else. So again, I think this fits a community need, it fits a need the staff have identified, and I just think it's incredibly appropriate to honor this particular person memorialized in this playground. And we, as always, would work with the family on exact language that would go on any sort of a plaque, picking out the final bench, coordinating colors and everything else. Yeah. All of that said, and Kathleen, you're okay with it, I'd love to give Eileen a chance to speak.
I
Yes.
would never say no. Of course she can.
I mean, I really don't have too much to add. Except just thank you for considering this, and it does seem like a very fitting way to honor my dad, and it's, you know, I feel his presence in this building anytime I come in here, and I've been coming here since Tiny Tots, so, a couple of years, so it seems really fitting. We don't, and that said too, and given the guidelines of the other committees, we don't have a particular timeline in mind for like when we need this done by, so, I mean, we're flexible with your process as well, so I just want you all to know that, and then to work with whoever we need to work with to pick anything out, but I know, yeah, this is my dad's home, and I think it will be very meaningful for my family, you know, to have this place to, you know, remember him, you know, the next Easter egg hunt or fill in the blank event.
Right.
So, anyways, I just thank you for the opportunity.
I'd like to thank your dad and your family for what they have meant to Marinwood, and just all of the ways that they brought this place from being, you know, kind of a new neighborhood back in the day to a real living, breathing, amazing community. What your dad and mom and all of you guys have done over the years is outstanding, and I would absolutely say yes to this. I'm making a motion
Thank you.
that we have a memorial bench for the esteemed Les Mize put into the park as designated by the staff and the Mize family. There you go, you like that?
Okay, can I ask for clarification?
Yes.
How do you want to handle the P&R commission aspect of this? And you're the liaison, so I think you're
Right.
a good person to make
Oh,
this
right.
recommendation.
Yeah, I wanna use.
I don't think like it, I think, and I appreciate your transparency, Eric, that I think they would not, I don't think they would care. In the sense that I don't think they would feel like they were getting cut out. I don't think we're setting a precedent here.
Madden may have a qualm.
We'll let Madden have a qualm, but there you go, Roger. So it's a great question. I don't think it's an issue.
So you're full.
So your motion is final
Yes,
approval,
yes.
move forward with the family
Absolutely.
and make it happen.
Absolutely.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you ask the public comment?
Oh, we
Do you, wait one moment.
I don't
Do you
have.
know? Okay,
No pressure.
all in favor?
Aye.
Before we move on, I just would like to share with
Wait, can I
Eileen.
finish?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Well, it is my honor to tell you that this passed, not that it wouldn't, but I'm so proud and excited to be part of this decision, so thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to share because I was thinking about, and unfortunately, life circumstances didn't allow me to attend Les's service or his reception afterward. But
Impressive.
Les, what's that?
I said impressive.
Yeah, well, Les, when I started this position 9.5 years ago, Les and actually Chris's dad, Cameron, were the two first people that came and introduced themselves to me and made a point out of doing that for that reason alone and just really being very welcoming and very encouraging and happy to have, you know, they were just great. They were just great. And as somebody who also lives in this community, it was that much more special to me as well. And then my other favorite memory with your dad was we recognized your family and your parents when he decided that the Mickey Mouse house wouldn't end, and the board presented a proclamation, and I remember Les, I remember as clear as day, saying, well, it might not be as much, but it's still going to be the most lit up house on the block. And your mom, before you could even finish, Patty was like, no, it's not. Which was great. And Les was like, or maybe it won't. But it was a funny moment.
That's awesome.
I remember going to the Mickey Mouse house from when I was a kid. It's just, I didn't live in Marinwood growing up, I was in Otto, but we would come down to see it. So, good memories.
Yeah. Our best to your family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down tonight. I mean.
No, everyone's super appreciative, so,
Yeah, now our best to your
yeah,
family.
thank you so much. All right,
All right, now you get your back.
all right.
Or you can stick around.
I'll let you carry on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, Eric.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you for all you do. I mean, seriously, I mean, you're carrying on the next, this is it, so I appreciate your efforts too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Sorry.
Oh, needs a Kleenex.
Okay. District matters. H1, Eric, all you.
H1, resolution 2024 determining the 24-25 appropriations limit on tax measures. This is something we've talked a lot about this year, mostly because we had the two measures that were on the March ballot that allowed the park tax and the fire tax to be included within our overall appropriations limit. Appropriation limit is kind of a hard thing to explain, but I tried to put this into the report so that it made some level of just clear, simple sense, even though it's not clear and simple. But this is a ministerial process that we go through every year. And the most important thing I can tell you is all of the data that creates the numbers come directly from the Department of Finance, from their price and population figure. There's a link in here that leads directly to that report. And then the calculator page is following the resolution that shows how you take last year's numbers, add in the price and population factor, plus the revenue expected from the special taxes to come with your final appropriations limit. And I feel like I just need to say this, exactly as the March measures did not impact tax rates or how much people were getting charged. This in no way raises taxes. This in no way allows the district to spend more taxes. This allows us, or to collect more taxes. This allows us to expend the taxes that are already going to be received. This has zero impact on John Q. tax rate.
It's administrative.
This is an administrative state government function.
Motion to approve consent. Took you a while.
Second.
Yeah, that's all right.
Any questions? other comments?
Just jump in.
I'm all good.
One of these days, you're gonna have to make a public comment.
Not today.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Number 2. Still you.
Be specific segment to this. That way our audience knows exactly what we're talking about. Item
Because
H2.
you might have a public comment if you.
We have a large viewership on YouTube, all right? I'm about 400 subscribers away from getting our own customized URL, so.
Nice.
400?
Right, how many people?
About that. It's actually a pretty realistic number. So this is for the fiscal year 24-25 pay schedules for all positions. Again, this is something that we go through every year, especially when you have any levels of changes in your pay schedules. Ours change every year at a minimum, just because we have some positions that are based on minimum wage, and it seems like minimum wage changes every year from the hourly. This does incorporate the changes that were budgeted and approved in the budget and discussed in the February meeting for Park and Rec, just as well as admin for the payroll manager position. The Park increase was 6%. The rec staff increase was 4.5%, and the payroll and accounting manager increase was also 4.5%. So all of that is written into here over what it was last year. And then there is the note here that, as you are all well aware, we are currently in negotiations for a successor MOU with the fire department. These are the numbers based on current wages of the current MOU. They will obviously change, however, when they change, assuming they change, you don't need to come back and approve the pay schedule, because you actually approve those wages because they're clearly spelled out in the MOU that you will be approving in a public session. So I will amend and update the pay schedule at that time and repost on the website with any changed numbers. The other thing I want to discuss here is we have discussed and staff has requested within our Parks Department the creation of a lead park maintenance position. This is not adding a position to the Parks Department. This will maintain the 3-person park department. But what it does is it allows us an opportunity to give one of those 3 positions a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more authority. Luke can hopefully take some of the things off of his plate, trying to manage 2 very busy and high-functioning departments, which he does a good job at, but it's really not a sustainable model. We did run the numbers. What we are suggesting is for that level across the board, it would be a 10% pay differential from the park maintenance 2 position. However, Luke and I have also talked that it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that would be moving into it will automatically jump up 10%. We might back them down 1 step, which would be a 5% increase. And while we go through this, kind of learn how we want this position to function, especially since we haven't really had this, and then we can revisit this as staff in a year and just and make that part of the condition of hire. That we'll set some goals and reestablish and relook at this in a year to look at bumping up to the next step, which is where they are at in their current position. Total fiscal impact, fully burdened impact of doing this and doing it the way that we talked about would be $4,894. So we're not talking about a lot of money here, but I do think it's needed. I think the park staff will benefit. I think Luke will benefit from it. I think the district will benefit from it. I think this will be just an internal offering at this point in time, because again, we're not creating another position, but it'll be open for all 3 current park employees to apply if they want to. And then beyond that, it'll be staff decisions on how to move forward, filling it or not.
Motion to.
I have a question. So for a while, we knew that hourly wages were going to be stepped up from minimum wage. We reached that point. I felt like When I got on the board, we knew that it was gonna need to step up every year, a certain amount to get to that level that it was, and I don't remember.
Well,
what
minimum
that-
wage
what-
has gone up on a yearly basis, every
Okay.
January 1st. So
Right.
as of right now, minimum wage is $16 an hour,
Okay,
I believe, is that right? For employers our size. However, there is also some potential legislation, potentially on ballot measures, that it could go up as high as $18 an hour on January 1st, which is why when you see janitorial assistant, you see that is a minimum wage position. That's why we have a low of 16 and a high of 18.
Okay.
So that way we already have the pay schedule set. Should the
that's,
state require minimum wage?
that was my question is.
Should the state require minimum wage to be $18? Now, that hasn't been finalized yet, it might not change at all, it might jump to 18, we're keeping an eye on it. But
Okay.
we built it into here, so that way we have the flexibility to make that move if and when needed.
Okay, perfect. That was my only question.
Anyone want to say?
I'll second that. Fine.
Public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3.
District manager report.
There you go.
Before I forget, I want to mention, and this was always been a clause within the budget, that we didn't have the final work comp or P&L insurance rates when we approved the budget. Both of those have come in. P&L is right at the area where we budgeted it, maybe a few $100s off one way direction or the other, but it wasn't, when I looked at it compared, I said, okay, we hit that good. Work comp definitely went up from a budgetary standpoint, more than I was expecting across the board. The basic rates that work comp is applied to all went up by about 15%. Total budget impact on that is across the board, district-wide, is $23,359. That doesn't account for any other levels of discounts we receive, either from trainings attended or multi-policy or any of that. So our total number will be a little bit less than that, but I never budget that number in. What I would propose at this point in time is on my working budgets, I've already made these changes, so I know where those are. If and when we conclude with the firefighter negotiations, not to mention this park lead position, I would come back to you all after those have been finalized, most likely with an amended budget. So that way, as we're going into budgeting next year, you have the kind of amended budget with information that we didn't have at the time the original budget was approved. So that is the total impact on all that. The other wonky part about work comp is these are estimates that then, after the close of the fiscal year, goes through a reconciliation, sometimes to look at what our actual wages paid per work comp classification. Sometimes we get a little bit of money back, sometimes we owe some money, so it's always good. That's why I don't actually budget in those anticipated discounts, because it gives us that buffer room, because it's very hard, especially from a seasonal perspective, when we're planning on budgeting people one year that won't even be working for us and don't totally know what's going to happen until the following April. So sometimes those go up and things change. But that's where that is, so that's been done. The change of payroll provider, I certainly, there's a little bit of an update on this. I want to thank Tiffany because she spent a lot of time, both with and without me, kind of going through. We certainly did our due diligence. We looked at what the different provider options are that were out there. It really comes down to ADP or paychecks. ADP is the group, neither of them are options that we're super excited about, but for an employer our size and our complexity of payroll, your mom and pop payroll shops just really, we need something a little bit better. ADP is the group that was chosen by AccuChecks to transition. They have a transition team specifically assigned to this. AccuChecks has a transition team specifically for working with ADP. If we did go with Paychecks, we would be on our own in working with Paychecks, and I wouldn't expect the same level of support from AccuChecks in terms of moving all of our historical data into their system. The one piece of good news is no matter what we do, AccuChecks has stated that they will definitely carry us through our busy season here, so we don't have to make a change while we have 250 seasonal employees and everything else going, which both Tiffany and I were ready to quit. Tiffany probably more so than me. I think the transition, it's the one transition nobody ever wants to make with your trying to manage a business. Switching payroll is a horrible, time-consuming, frustrating, long process. I do think it'll be easier with ADP, but we're still trying to look at, okay, but what about the 10 years after the transition is over, the 20 years after? What is the system and the group that we like? We haven't made a final decision, but we are probably leaning towards ADP. Just the systems are, they both have their pros and cons. They're both 6 one way, half a dozen the other direction when you're dealing with firms like that. And we are also looking at other tools. Now that we are making this, they do have tools available that are far beyond what AccuChecks had. We're certainly looking at better time management and scheduling systems that we can use from there. Clock in, clock out portals for employees that automatically get uploaded to their managers, and then their managers confirm them, and then that gets uploaded to Tiffany. Just in the long run, I actually think this is going to cut a lot of work off of Tiffany's plate, processing payroll every 2 weeks. Right now, using a stack about this thick of paper timesheets, hoping you can, is that a 5? Is that an 8? I can't even read what this person's name is on this. It'll be some growing pain, but I think in the long run, it's a much better. We're so far behind the time and how we do things. It'd be nice to catch up. No pun intended. So that's where we are with the change of payroll. Again, we're looking at this probably starting the actual transition late August with a go live date that could potentially be even that first payroll in October, which would be nice because that's also a quarter break. So when we're looking at our quarterly tax filings, payroll tax filings, everything else, it kind of keeps a very clean break between the two. And it's also how we reconcile our payroll, bank account, everything else. So I think it'd be nice to, it's probably what I'm going to wind up pushing for, so we're not doing like a mid-quarter switch. Because we're going to wind up going through, unfortunately, probably having to double enter payroll. And going through some trial runs with whatever company we go with, just to make sure everything processes and goes good.
Tiffany looks thrilled with you making these statements.
Well, that's why we're waiting till after summer. But they won't, we won't just, the very first round won't be a go live with whatever provider we do. It'll be a trial live. Make sure that everything works.
Keep saying
A soft launch.
Oh, I'm in on this. No kidding.
No, I think that we won't just.
Yeah.
He gets to hear me better.
And then finally, on the fire station bunker room project, we are moving forward, not as quickly as any of us had hoped, but it is moving forward. In fact, just yesterday, we had an architect who came down to look at everything. I'm waiting on hearing back from another architectural firm as well. We have connections with both of these firms. One of our firefighters served as a reference towards this, who's dabbled in the construction industry, and the contractor he has done a lot of work with uses the firm that came down, and then the other firm actually did the drawings for us at a very reasonable rate for the kitchen. So they're familiar with the facility as well. I'm just waiting to hear back from them to set a date when they can come down and look, because we can't do anything at this point until we get the drawings in place, because then we'll have to go through the permitting process at that point. Those are, and I credit Jeff Smith, those are the very simple concept designs of what it is and what it will become. And for those of you who haven't been in there in a while, but if you're looking at the blank space one, and you hold it like this, and this is the door, on this wall is 4 Murphy beds on this wall, is 5 Murphy beds that pull down, so I mean, they're sleeping in a hostel, basically, in a dorm.
So then you would have only 1 person per room per shift, but there's 3 beds in there, because they can't, okay. I wanted to confirm that that's.
Well, one of the things that they had requested was if it was possible, and Will, please speak up. If it was possible, they'd like to maintain having their own independent beds. I've actually been in touch with, just recently, with the person who, and the firm that actually built the beds that are in there right now, and talked about breaking them down into sets of 2 in a single, how we would go about doing that. I don't anticipate that to be a huge cost, but my question for him at this point in time was, is it possible? He said, yes, absolutely possible, and utilizing all of the same frames and everything else. The only thing he might have to provide new would be the kind of exterior shells,
Okay.
which I anticipate, but the mechanical parts of everything, we'd be able to reuse and do all that, which would be great, and that's kind of how it fits. And I also understand and appreciate their request for kind of having their own bed, obviously, if somebody is working an OT shift in the room that they're normally in with their bed, a regular shift person is in there, they're gonna have to go use a different bed for that night, but that kind of happens to some degree now anyway. Or they can just sleep on the lazy boy, which, as I understand it, there's a couple of them that's their regular sleeping home anyway.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the fact that one of the rooms, not that we can change that, but one of the rooms doesn't have a window.
It will have a window.
It will.
Oh yeah, well, and that comes with code too.
That's, I didn't.
Yeah,
think
that square right there that you see, that is
Yeah.
actually an old door and a window
Okay.
that, for whatever reason, years and years ago had been covered up.
Okay,
So what
perfect.
we're probably gonna wind up doing is getting rid of the door itself and putting in a window there, so they'll actually both kind of have these double windows.
Nice.
What we are confirming right now, because we're making this move, is the existing windows might actually need to be replaced and enlarged, because they might not be up to code and on something like
You
that.
guys can't get in.
You can't
to
do,
your own house?
well, when you have the sleeping quarter,
Yeah.
you need an emergency egress. Exactly. So going through the permitting, we'll get to that, but this is why we also need an architect, because they're the ones who know what all the codes are. And so they might actually work, we'll figure that part out. Because you can't really do it existing non-conforming when you're making all the other changes in the same room. They're gonna require you to, you need to be no more than X feet high and no less than X feet wide.
Last chance, bunk beds?
That was my suggestion, but
Triple bunks?
Triple
Like
bunks.
a Navy carrier?
Back to college.
back to the news.
But anyway, I just wanted to share, again, thank you to Jeff Smith, who's an engineer with the fire department. He's the one who actually put all of these concept drawings together. They were a great start.
Yeah.
Very helpful as I'm reaching out to architects to just say, this is the concept that we're looking for. We brought them over. These guys have tape lines kind of on the ground and everything. And the architect's like, from an architectural perspective, this is a pretty simple project.
Yeah.
You're probably talking about 5, maybe 6 sheets total for permitting and for contract bidding. So, all right. And then we would be changing out some lights. It's got some old, giant fluorescent box light things that we'll pull those out, put can lights in instead.
You don't want
And
to
then
sleep under fluorescents anymore?
It won't fit with the way the walls are, but it'll be much nicer to go can lighting anyway. But again, minor expense because all the electric's already run. We might have to, we'll have some code compliance with having enough plugs in spaces. Some might be on the temp walls, we have some existing that are already in there, but all that is based on what code says is minimum has to be done. And then we'll have to move around the HVAC registers in the room, so that way each of these little sleeping quarters, we don't have to do that, but we would, so that each of these sleeping quarters has their own register. Meaning, like where the air comes out of is the HVAC
You're gonna do
register.
dimmer lights?
Well, I don't want them to get spoiled, Kathleen, so it's gonna be 8,000 lumens or nothing. No, as long as you're putting in cans, it makes a lot of sense. You just add a dimmer switch. It costs about $14 extra.
Correct.
Any questions?
So, I mean, are you guys all super into this?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I snore other people snore, we need some
Never-
sort of
I don't
separation.
think
So are we,
Walls are
so
gonna
are
stop.
we asking
Well,
for
it's
separate
still
rooms
hell.
or separate, like, sound insulation? Like, that's a whole
Separate
nother.
rooms.
If once we're done, they wanna
Extra
line them
pillows.
with 8-grade cushions, that's up to them.
I think that's great, it's a long time coming, we should have thought of.
I don't think snoring falls under the formal accommodations required statutes of labor law.
Not until you sleep in a room with all three of them.
But no, I think it'll be a good project. Our goal now is to move on this thing, especially while we have at least myself in particular, have a very small window of opportunity before that slams shut. We gotta get the drawings done, and then we can work on the permitting part, and then once that is in motion, we can put this out to bid. At the cost that it is, it'll be a very, that we anticipate this costing, it'll be a very informal bidding, to the point where it won't really even be bidding. We'll send out some announcements, seeking proposals through like Marin Builders and possibly through Sonoma Builders Exchange. But we will be legally within our rights to direct deal on this. We don't have to do any sort of a sealed or even an informal bidding. We will put a deadline, hey, please submit by this date, but we can really direct deal and work with the contractors that we want to work with on this. It obviously will be a prevailing wage requirement, but that'll be the only public works laws that we'll have to worry about on this one.
And how long are we thinking possibly this would take, and where would they sleep?
Once we get going and they start doing the work,
On the recliners.
probably less than 2 weeks. But that said, and also talking, there might be a few nights where they will need to have a temporary sleeping setup, but the way these beds are and the way these mattresses are, you can still put a mattress in, the mattresses just are sitting right on top. And the guy who did the bed said there's even like, he'll look for little risers that can keep them off the ground a little bit, makes getting in and out of bed a little bit easier for them. So that's a great question. It was one of my concerns, but we'll try to keep them as comfortable as possible, but recognizing the end goal here is a much more comfortable scenario.
We're trying. We can't read our watts. Okay.
Very cool.
Alright,
Thank you.
That's it, unless there's any questions.
and no public comments.
Oh, you don't really know more comments?
Thank you.
They've been great to work with.
He's never
The
gonna.
fire department, they had initial drawings that I had a couple concerns with, and they came back and I think shored that up and ultimately better set up the way they were laid out.
That's great.
I think it'll be good when it's done.
Got parking for Jeff's golf cart?
We're gonna put an EV charger out there for it.
No comment about Jeff's.
My kids are jealous.
The whole community is jealous.
I'm like, you walk across the street, we're not getting anything.
Alright, fire department matters. Draft minutes. Fire commission meeting. Any questions?
Can I give an update really quick?
On the minutes?
Yep, that has to do with the fire commission. Before we move on, yesterday I was in a meeting because I sit on the operations committee for NWPA. A few weeks ago, there's a person on our fire commission, his name is Pascal Marcente. He is a wicked smart individual, and he spent many, many years working in disaster modeling
Yeah.
for the insurance agencies. And now he works for one of the reinsurers. But the insurance concerns have long been discussion topic amongst the fire commission. Pascal is trying to look at ways that right now the disaster modeling that they use does not take into account anywhere across the state levels of mitigation efforts that have been taken, and he's trying to figure out how best to do that. So I actually put Pascal in touch with Mark Brown, who's the executive officer. They have been off and running for the last few weeks. Pascal was actually at the operations committee meeting yesterday, kind of explaining what it is exactly that they're trying to do, how we can incorporate the data that MWPA is collecting into some of this modeling efforts. They're trying to identify 3 to 5 various communities geographically spread throughout the state, one being a mountain community, one being kind of a suburban community, so that way they can put together a pilot. They're looking for some funding for their pilot. I think they'll probably be able to find it. So that way, when they're looking at these kind of disaster modelings, that you are not allowed to use disaster modeling, I learned, when you are setting rates. Who uses disaster modeling are the reinsurers that basically are the insurers for the insurance companies, and they can use it to decide whether or not you're going to offer insurance to a broad area. So right now they're trying to use this basically to combat, I seriously doubt this will lower rates, but the hope and the intent is that this will make some areas that insurers are seeing as uninsurable, insurable.
Right.
So hats off to Pascal on this, because he's doing a lot of work with them, and I'm glad that that's working out, because MWPA is leading the charge on this across the state.
Oh, thank you so much. So are you gonna go with the chief report class? I'm gonna keep trying.
That reaction was awesome.
I will say that Kate came to our meeting and she's pretty incredible.
Kate's awesome.
A lot of knowledge and.
Yeah. Kate is awesome. And Kate is the wild fire program manager for the city of San Rafael Fire Department. We've been working with her for probably 5 years now. From when she first started, helping us kind of identify priority zones, to get projects off the ground. She's now got a little bit of staff. Her role has increased a little. I mean, she's a registered forester. She has done a lot of work studying wildfire behavior, prevention techniques, and she has been a resource that we just wouldn't be able to do the thing we didn't have that. Kate's amazing. She presents well. Otherwise, any questions on the chief report? I can try to answer them the best I can.
I will say that he is not the interim chief anymore.
Oh, he
He
did.
is our
You did
fire chief.
You did get it?
Yes.
Good job.
That's what my Google alert said.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Well, this one says, or did you fix it?
I did.
Okay.
You have the outdated.
In the fire, well, because when I got
Distress.
fire condition one, it still said interim, but it should have said, because he had already been chief. Any questions on the chief report?
I just want to say how
All the prevention work's happening. Goats are wrapping up as we speak. And then later August, we'll be working on the veg management projects. And the chipper days are coming. There'll be a lot of announcements coming through kind of countywide social media and everything else about making sure everybody knows those dates, take advantage of it, clear your property. We are doing home inspections, or I don't want home inspections, home evaluations for both vegetation management, for the space, as well as home hardening. So they are going door to door to every house in the Marinwood district, making sure, offering, either doing it from the public right of way or offering, if the homeowner agrees, they'll do a full 360 and walk your entire property and identify everything. Reports are digitized 24 hours or so after they do their inspection. You can log on and see your own report. You'll get a URL and a code to see your address and what your report is. So all of that is good stuff.
Yeah, they did Appleberry on Friday.
And they're also sharing information, letting them know that there is direct assistance available for veg management projects. There's funding, matching funding available for home hardening expenses, upgrading vents or any of that kind of stuff. So they're with every visit, they're leaving behind information that also says, here's where you can have access to, how you can access some of this.
I feel like when one of the last meetings Chief White was at, he was talking about maybe providing us with some sandwich boards to further alert people to the chipper days, because I've seen those in the San Rafael area when they have their days. And actually, I think one time, I want to say I saw it in Nevada, but maybe I'm making that up. But I definitely have seen it in San Rafael, and I think that would be helpful. I don't know how realistic that is or who would be responsible
Like
for
ahead
it.
of time?
Yeah, ahead of time, just saying, hey, look, these are the chipper days, because I can't remember, do you have to go onto the website
Yep.
and say, hey,
You have to reserve
You gotta make
it.
an appointment and reserve it.
So whenever-
Or a QR code or something on there.
whenever, like, I guess whatever that timeline would be, I think it would be really helpful, because my buddies, when I see that people start pulling their stuff out, it's too late, right? When you see the
Right.
stuff on the side of the street. And I'm sure it's not just my friends that are totally unaware.
Let me just wrap my head around a little bit how we
Yeah, I don't want
promote that info. We might
We
even be
can
able to
put
make
one
a
in
cheap
the
sign and put them
corner.
up at some of the signposts that we
Right.
advertise other.
And I don't want to add a ton, you guys are already, like, busy with a lot of stuff, but
Let me look in there. They might already have some stuff
okay.
like that.
I think that's what Chief White was saying, that they may already have some things that. we can
Yeah,
just
it might,
get our
the
hands on.
A-frames are only so effective,
Right.
because as you're driving by it, it's really hard to see what it's actually saying.
Right.
And then you want to put it in high traffic areas where, basically your two primary entrances coming into
Exactly.
the whole area.
Miller Creek, Wildwood, right at that bus stop right there, perfect place.
That's probably not where I would put it, but okay. Alright. Otherwise, if
my
there's no
house.
other questions.
I'm like on the other side of the street, going, where are you going? All right, moving on. It's been a long couple of days.
It's always so bad.
And 2 more coming up, but only 2 more.
One more, just today. Any public comment on the chief officer report? Okay. Park and Rec matters?
Come on, we're gonna talk about pickleball.
Hey, thank you for letting me ask
I
if
see
you
how
have
it
any
is,
comments
Will.
though. Bye.
Hey.
How it is, Will.
It was, I thought it was kind of an interesting meeting. There was a lot of stuff that was discussed. But it never, like, the meeting just kept like going, I don't know, it was interesting, right? Like, I just felt like we kept circling
Wait,
things.
were you meandering?
There was, yes, it was
Okay.
meandering and circling. Not that that was bad, it was just, there was a lot that was touched on, but nothing in, I would say, too great a depth. Correct me on anything if I'm wrong. Pickleball, it just, time-wise, a trial for that is not gonna work out by the time school's out. And so the thought process was to maybe, as we get closer to the end of the summer and the fall when school opens up, that might be a better time to do the trial, right?
Is that a trial for pickleball dependent upon school?
Well, one of the issues that was widely discussed with the P&R group was they want to make sure that the school doesn't have anything, any complaints about it that they are not foreseeing, i.e. the noise, right?
In the middle of the
And
day.
the foot traffic.
The day.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me it makes sense, and I think the general consensus of the discussion was like, we're not gonna try this, let's say in, late June to early
Okay,
August.
no, I was just.
Yeah, no, it's a
That
good
just
question.
struck me
It's
as
a good
a
question.
funny reason.
We discussed a lot about the capital projects, and I know that's one of the things that is gonna be hit on, so I'll leave that alone, but again, it was just like talking about capital projects, what were the things on the horizon, and the staff that I thought did a really good job of sort of explaining why these projects were on the list and what the level of urgency, right? Then there was quite a bit of a discussion about pathway maintenance. We're talking about the pathways that are in certain parts of the neighborhood.
Were you talking about the
Right.
pathways on and off?
It's primarily
Trail?
over in, like
The
over
woods?
Quietwood, Pinewood.
The pedestrian
No,
path
little
is
mini
that
pathway
to the
right by
streets.
your house. I
Yeah.
don't know if that one counts, but that's definitely
That's
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't count, but yours counts.
I don't have one.
He doesn't have
I don't
one.
have one,
The one
and I don't have to
Mine
maintain it.
counts.
from
Mine counts.
Oakstone all
Yeah.
the
Right,
way through
right.
down to.
So-
to the park.
There was a discussion about the maintenance of those, some proposed maintenance ideas, and Luke had talked about maybe talking to the crew a little bit about how, there was some creative discussion about how we could take better care of those within our current agreement with our landscape company. Is that fair to say? And then maybe even adding on a little bit of extra to at some point, have each one of them really cut back, almost like when we were talking about the wildfire mitigation,
Yeah.
like cutting them back to the bare bones, and then they would be easier to maintain by our landscape crew. So landscape crew, meaning
Yeah,
the
no, I know, I'm just thinking about what our previous questions that have come up were like, not necessarily weeds and cutting back, it was more of leaves coming from the trees, right?
I think the latest comments were about how at this time of year they start to become overgrown.
Okay,
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, the maintenance crew that we hire as a third party, their job is to maintain the walkability of those pathways.
okay.
And not the actual, not actually the way they look.
I would encourage, if this topic interests you, to pull up the P&R commission packet from the last meeting, because there's a pretty detailed staff report that went through, identified where all of them are, went through the historical
Okay.
aspects of them, even kind of addressing how the landscape crew kind of got involved when we cut 40% of the park
Right.
department
Yeah.
and everything else. So I would encourage you to go to there. And I think at the end, you know, the one thing that we wanted as a staff to communicate on it was, as a staff, I mean, there's so, I don't want to say that they're not a priority, but there's higher priority items that our staff need to be working on, and that's just a 3-person staff trying to do it. And the one thing we wanted to press upon them is, if our park guys go and work on those, that means they're not working on something else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was kind of something important. It wasn't to downplay, and I certainly understood, obviously some people who live closer or even right next door to them or utilize them more have different attitudes about them. You know, one of our bigger concerns on those is kind of the safety aspect of them and just making sure where they're coming out into the street, at least that's trimmed back
Right.
to some level, so kids just don't come popping out of there and a car can't see them until it's too late, kind of
Yeah.
a situation. Or the kids can't see the car because, you know, his neighbors
Right.
have grown giant hedges next to them because they want to use that as some level of privacy or whatever the case may be, so.
And I think on like the one by you, right, that comes, there's a crosswalk that goes out from the firehouse.
Yeah, and I think
And then it
those,
jogs left and then it cuts through to Appleberry.
I feel like those 2 homes have been maintaining those.
Oh, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
But my question was, because this was actually brought up to me informally, when you get out to Appleberry, who would determine, like, it almost seems like should there be some sort of a crosswalk across Appleberry there, because we are funneling people to that spot.
Roads Division, Public Works.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
All right,
we
so
used
that'll
to, we
never
have,
happen.
we used to have a yield sign and somebody
Just
hit
disappeared.
it and it's
Yeah,
been
we
2 years and it hasn't come back.
okay. And just, I think my final comment would be, that, like, again, just to kind of circle back and support your statement, is there was some creative thought process around, would it be feasible, doable, should we look at it, to put some financial resources behind paying attention to those, like, almost like a one-time only, to, you know, the discussion was, should we, like, really cut them back, but it wouldn't be our staff doing it necessarily, it would be, wasn't the conversation that we would hire land design at,
Or we'd hire a.
okay, another company, right, an outside
But would it
company.
be a yearly cutback because things grow back? Is it cut back and pull or?
We don't know what it is.
Okay.
Right,
They're all kind of a little bit different,
Right.
like, so it could be kind of a case by case, what would be, it might be something that every couple of years, it'd be maybe a cycle, you know, to go in there and do that. 'Cause it's a lot of real estate, if you add it all up on
Yeah.
a list. It would definitely, if we tried to do all of them at one time, that would be, it eat into the budget a lot to do that, but if we had kind of a cyclical way of addressing, that would be something to look at, I think, yeah.
Is there any way we could get the community involved?
that was part of the discussion.
Because basically the community is the ones that walk those paths. And I can tell you from Opalstone to the park, every block has different vegetation and totally
Right.
different.
Well, and that was the one that we
amount
were
of
trying to
vegetation.
explain is, to the best of our knowledge from a historical, the district has never planted a single thing along
Right.
those pathways. these are done usually by people who live right next door to them or whatever. So even coming through and clearing them out, while you might have a group of people who are very much in favor of that, you might also have people who say, but I put all this here for a reason, and now you just came and took it all out. You never make everybody happy with whatever decision. And we had an incident up in the Lucas Valley Estates a couple of years ago where a big swath of open space, somebody decided they wanted to throw a bunch of daffodil bulbs in there. And our guys went through and cut down the tall grass, and next thing you know, we're getting a call the next day saying that they destroyed all of our daffodils. We're like, the daffodils that you planted on our property? So you can just never make everybody happy is my point. Some are better maintained, some were planted years ago by people who probably moved away and nobody ever followed up, so it just kind of went unmaintained. Some of the walkways are very well maintained, some are not.
Some of the vegetation's just grown through the fences.
Right.
And everything grows underground and it just comes up.
And that was part of there was some creative problem solving, but it didn't go anywhere. It ended up okay, this is.
Yeah, because
this is a bigger issue than
time and time again.
Totally.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we wanted to put across it. There's not a simple solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that they heard that loud and clear.
And just burn it out.
Well, ironically, remember your last comment was, is this a defensible space issue and could we approach it that way?
Yeah, I don't know that it is, but I'm still looking at it.
Okay.
To some degree, maybe if where there's some dead trees or something it is, but just removing non-flammable vegetation is a whole different ball of wax.
Right.
But I'm trying to get creative on where we find some funding.
Totally. Any questions for me?
Nope.
Thank you for.
My mission is
Yes, you're welcome.
Any public, okay. All right. No questions on the minutes either? We did mines. Number 3, Measure A, work plan.
Which this is more just looking for authorization to move forward on what the project is, and then identifying that we ideally should have enough funding within our available Measure A funds that we'll receive throughout the year by which to expense this towards. We went through, a few months ago when we presented kind of those identified capital needs, especially the more we talked about it as a staff, the pool is the #1 priority, because if it gets to a point where it starts to deteriorate in a much quicker rate, the pool is going to be closed. So what we are presenting and saying is we would like to do that project this year during the off season of the pool. We believe we should have enough Measure A funds to do this. We actually just kind of got a different informal estimate that can still rank true within our numbers here. What I would like to do is put this out. This is going to be, we're going to have to identify who the companies are that does this work, and even though it's going to hit different kind of thresholds from cost when it comes to sealed bidding or non-sealed bidding, there's only so many companies that do this work anyway. And then we also would, Luke and I were talking, one of the things we would like to do is also put on as a additional alternate, just because there are some cracks in it, it is leaking, realizing that redoing the top pool is a much larger project and conversation, but potentially utilizing this opportunity to just replaster the top pool, which I don't think would be all that expensive at this point in time. It'll buy us a little time while we look at that much larger project. It doesn't mean we have to take it, but I'd like to know what it would cost to add that on to the overall large pool as well. And if it's a reasonable number and it all still stays within our budget, we would strongly say, yeah, let's push forward and do that at this point in time too, because we have sealed up some of the cracks and things, but as that pool shifts, they're going to continue. And it's kind of like the tennis court analogy. We'll re-lacquer it, but as it continues to shift, that's not going to be a long-term solution, but it will certainly keep the top pool humming for a little while longer in a much better way.
It'll be October when we shut everything down, right?
We would not close the pool for this. We would look to do this type of work during the off season, but before the rainy season, because as Luke has learned, and Luke can chime in better than I can, but once they need clear weather to do this. It's not a project they can be doing through the rain.
Do you have to put out an RFP?
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
touch on. We're in our last week before the big summer season starts, and it's been a while. It feels like it's Friday, but it's only Tuesday. We've got like school pool parties going on every day at the pool, plus additional end of school year pool parties happening in the park every day, and road groups showing up to try to have celebrations. It's been just like a little
I'd
flurry.
like to apologize for Miss Valley.
Oh, no need. Yeah. But yeah, so it's been, we're just kind of, it's been pretty crazy this last couple of weeks, just getting everything ready, trying to get everything organized. But it's coming together, and I'm optimistic that everything's be ready to go, and on Monday we'll be able to kick off summer camp and the pool season, or the summer pool season, without any problems. So, but it has been, the hot weather has brought a lot of extra activity, and a lot of people just seem to come out of the woodwork on hot days, and it's just, it's been a total zoo around here, which I love the activity, but it's been hectic. We don't have all of our people back yet, so we've got some help from some of our college camp staff members that have been back, and some of our senior lifeguard people back from school that have been kind of helping get things ready, but it's always a big push this week leading up to summer. So it's all been going well, and I'm looking forward to us just getting to Monday and just moving forward, and it'll be what it's going to be. There's still a lot going on the rest of this week. We have the big camp staff training taking place this Saturday, and also our big pre-season lifeguard training that we do every year. So both those things are kind of happening concurrently. John Paul and Robin have been doing a ton of work getting ready for that. We'll have all like 250 some odd staff members here, like going through all the stuff they need to know, and getting refreshed on everything. And that's always a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. And but it looks like it's going to be a great staff for the summer. So we've been very busy. Things are coming together. I'm feeling good about it. I've included the final lineup for the Music in the Park series, which we're looking forward to. Starts on June 28th, and for some reason we booked a doubleheader for the first night, so it's going to be logistically challenging, but it'll be a lot of fun. Two local bands, and the rest of it's going to be awesome. So I hope you guys are all able to make it for that. We're getting all the logistics figured out to do that. And I mentioned this in the commission meeting last month, but I want to just wanted to acknowledge Bill Hansel, who is retired from booking the summer music series after I think did for like 11 years or something, and we kind of brought that in-house this year, and it's a lot of work. It's a whole puzzle. It's the whole thing, and I knew that, but being more hands-on, I have a much better appreciation for what it takes to book a summer of entertainment and deal with all these interesting, varied artists and all their things that come with that. And so, it was a very big learning experience for us. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we got a lot of great people lined up, and I think it's gonna be a really good summer concert series plus our Brew Fest on July 27th. So, hope you guys are able to make it to that. A couple weeks ago, we had our preschool graduation, which was just the most adorable graduation ceremony, and we, congratulated our preschoolers on getting promoted to out of preschool. And I want to just acknowledge our preschool supervisor, Elena. This was her first year as preschool supervisor, taking over for Kate, who was doing it for a number of years before that. And she just did a fantastic job with the preschool program this year. I was flabbergasted when I realized that it was only her first year. It ran so smoothly, and she stepped into that role so easily that I would have guessed it was the second or third, and a lot of time doesn't fly, I guess. But she did a great job, so we're very, very happy with how the preschool year went, and grateful that transition was so smooth and so easy. So big thanks to her.
And she found it pleasurable and easy, and she'll come back next year.
All indications are yes. I think she really took the the program and made it her own, and it was just it went really well. So she was really happy. So hopefully that's a number of years after. On the parks maintenance side, the big news was the big pool pump replacement, which was just amazing. We was, I guess, maybe 3-4 weeks ago was when we kind of realized that our pump was making a lot of noise and not working the way it was supposed to work. We had it evaluated and was determined, yeah, this is going to fail on you at any time. It needs to be replaced immediately. A bearing was going out, and it's one of those things that it just keeps getting worse and worse, and eventually just seizes up, which we would be looking at a sudden emergency pool closure, and then until parts were required, work was scheduled, and that's an integral part of the pool that we can't operate without. So thankfully, we were able to get one of our pool contractors that we worked with in the past to like drop everything and put us on the schedule right away. We were able to find the parts. Usually these things take like 6 months to ship, I've been told. And he was able to find things on the shelf, kind of pieced it together last minute to be able to get it done before the summer. We didn't have to cancel any school pool parties, which would have been pretty devastating. We didn't have to cancel any swim meets. That kind of happened right, in the weekdays where we had very few programs happening. And we were able to get the parts on time, get the work done, and it went exactly according to schedule. So it was a really unfortunate thing to have our equipment start to fail, but the way that it was able to be replaced was just completely ideal, and so I'm very grateful that really everyone kind of hustled to make that happen for us. And it's all working great, and we are looking great going into the summer pool season. So that was a little bit stressful leading up to that, but great. And I want to thank the swim team. The water levels were very cool about having to cancel practice for a few days. They did a couple of dry land things.
It was really cute.
Yeah, they made that work. So and the only thing that was really unfortunate is this was the hottest couple days of the year. I mean, maybe except for today. And so we had all these people come into the pool. We're like, oh, we're so sorry, we're not open. And they're like, what do you mean you're not open? It's like 100 degrees out. So it was really bad timing on that end. But we were actually able to get a ton of stuff done at the pool. While the pool was shut down, we used our staff that would have been guarding to do some pressure washing and painting and got a bunch of things fixed back in the pool. So it was kind of a good sort of byproduct of that. So pool's looking good, and we're feeling really good about going into the summer season. And our parks maintenance staff has been spending the last couple of weeks sprucing up the grounds, getting everything ready, making some repairs in the parking lot, pruning and trimming, and we've got trees being trimmed along the street just to make sure there's no dead branches that might fall on cars or whatever, to make sure everything's safe and looking its best for the start of our season. I'm feeling really good about all that. Yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to touch on, but please let me know if anyone has any questions or would like to discuss anything else. Thank you.
I'd like to discuss the walkways.
Oh, we can open that back up.
I think my only comment would be, I'd like to thank Luke and other members of his staff that have helped get the boulder in place for the Brian DeSanto Memorial. And Luke's gonna help me finalize the plaque and get that created as well, so that we can finalize that.
Where is it?
Cross it off. It is right as you walk that little path to the horseshoe pits.
Oh, that's the boulder?
It's the new boulder right there next to the split rail
That
fence.
came up last Friday. I go, where the hell did that come from?
It just grew, it
Yeah.
grew.
It's naturally occurring.
It's perfect,
It's
yeah.
the spot where you guys were pouring all the beer.
Yeah.
And you were boulder.
That's where the
And I can just say that I went out there with Brian's wife, and just like had a magical,
You guys.
visit to see. And the thing that you don't realize is because most, we were looking at it with the creek behind it, which was perfect. And like, she was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I stood behind it, and the view from, if you were sitting on that rock or right there is amazing. The view into the hills is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a good
Perfect.
spot.
Perfect
Yeah,
spot.
that's great.
Perfect spot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it really helps
It was not
tie
gonna
the area together. I think it was a good, win-win there for
Right.
what we're trying to do.
Perfect.
So.
There's gonna be a ceremony with the plaque.
I think we'll get the plaque done and in place, and then like
Party at the Biz.
maybe.
Maybe a Friday.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Board member items of interest or future agenda items.
It's already on the agenda for me.
No, I just wanna bring up something that I don't know if anybody knows this person, but it was just brought to my attention this evening that a a former director passed away, I guess, last week? Or the week
It's
before?
been probably a couple weeks
Couple
now.
weeks.
The actual date of when she passes, I'm really not.
Okay. I just thought I'd acknowledge her work on the board. She was on the board for
Can we say her
probably at
name?
least 8 years.
Terry.
Terry Reed.
Oh.
Thank you. Didn't know that.
All right.
We can adjourn in her honor, how about that?
Cool.
Yes, we will. At 8:16.
But our next board meeting is not in June, it is July.
It's in July.
You know, no, I knew that, because you see, what I do is I give the agenda beforehand to Kathleen, and I was seeing if she would catch that.
It was a test.
You are correct, the next board meeting is July, that's my oversight.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
July
I wanted
11th.
to make sure that the next board meeting wasn't
That's
today.
a
Was-
July 11th is a Thursday.
I look at the things you list, not the dates.
Second Tuesday, right?
It's gonna be July 9th.
July
Right.
9th,
Right.
yeah, so.
I mean, do you not all have it in your calendar already?
We do,
No.
but it's just
No.
here.
July 9th.
Alright,
Noted.
we're adjourned.
Right here.
All right. Good news already. Right before.